All right, so your cheat sheet is your lifeline. I want you guys to keep up with this for the entire unit, actually the entire year, but definitely for this unit. Okay, what we're talking about is logic statements. Okay, so we're kind of getting away from all of the math for a second, and we're talking about like sentences. Okay, our statements, we have 4 different statements. Your original is called the conditional statement. That is an if-then form. You guys need to know this P to Q. Okay? There's an arrow in between that, which means that's where we're going. The way we read it is if P, then Q, and your example is if I am cold, then I shiver. That's an example that's just made up. Okay? Yes. Math. English. Your hypothesis is always the phrase that follows the word if. It does not include the word if, but when I say P to Q, the P means hypothesis, the Q means conclusion. Okay, mine's a little small, so I'm writing it over. So look at our example. If I am cold, then I shiver. If my hypothesis is right after the word if, that first phrase, what is my hypothesis going to be? Look at this example here. What's right after the word if? I am cold. So my hypothesis is I am cold. Write that down. My conclusion is the phrase that follows the word then. So what is my conclusion?
I shiver.
I shiver. All right. Your negation means to negate something. It means the opposite of your statement. So you guys can't see it too well, but it's basically like a little squiggly line. Go ahead and make that bigger. And the way we read it is the word not. Okay, here's what you have to know. There are these words here. Super important. Our converse, our inverse, and our contrapositive. This is why I gave you guys this paper. If we refer back to our original statement, our conditional statement, it is P to Q. Okay, we have a P, we have an arrow, we have Q. Our converse tells us to flip the hypothesis and the conclusion. So I'm going to have Q to P. I just flipped them. And the way that we read this is going to be if Q, then P. Okay, the converse is just the opposite of the conditional. So if my original example was if I am cold, then I shiver. We said if I am cold was the P, then I shiver was my conclusion. So that's Q. If I flip those,
If I shiver, then
I am cold. Write that down.
That's what you say.
If I shiver, then I am cold. I do not expect you guys to memorize this stuff. This is why I want you to hang on to your blue sheet so you can refer back to it. All right, now we have inverse. The inverse says to negate the hypothesis and conclusion of the conditional. My conditional was my original statement here. So to negate is to take the opposite. So we're going to write not P to not Q. That squiggly line means not. So the way that I read this is if not P, then not Q. All right, so let's look at our original. The original statement is if I'm cold, then I shiver. But now I need not P and not Q. So I'll start it. If I am not cold, then what?
I don't shiver.
then I don't shiver, or then I don't shiver. That's the way to put it. If I am not cold, then I don't shiver. Throughout this unit, you guys will notice that some of your words can be flip-flops, okay? If you wrote, if I am not cold, then I am not shivering, or that I am not going to shiver, any of that still means the same thing. All right, your contrapositive says, negate the hypothesis and conclusion of the converse. Here's my converse, so I'm going to do the opposite of this. So not Q to not P. And that's how I read it. It's not Q. And not P. All right, so my example. My original was if I am cold, then I shiver. So I need to flip it and take the opposite. So if I don't shiver, then I am not cold.
Wait, what?
Because we had to do if not Q, then not P, so we had to flip it. If I don't shiver, then I am not cold. You guys see how this can get confusing with the P's and the Q's and the nots?
Yeah.
Okay, so keep up with this blue sheet. We'll practice it a lot, but I know it's a lot to memorize. Then we have our biconditional statement. What this means is that we join the two parts of the conditional with the phrase if and only if. So what we do here is we make a P with an arrow going both ways and then our Q. My P to Q. And the way that we read it is P if Q. When you guys write if, I want you to put two F's. Because in geometry, IFF means if and only if. So this means P if and only Q. And I'm not going to put my sentence in there right now, but my sentence would be, I am cold if and only if I shiver. Okay, so for the biconditional, you don't need the if or the then. You're just putting in the middle if and only if. So you take the first part, I am cold if and only if I shiver. So if you see that IFF, that is if and only if. Okay, the back part of this cheat sheet we're not doing right now because that's more of day 2. Okay, so just hang on to it. Everyone have this written down? All right, good. All right, conditional and biconditional statements. Your conditional statement, which is basically the original statement, is always going to be in if-then form. An if-then statement. If you do your homework, then you will do well on your test. That's a conditional statement. All right, the hypothesis. I know you guys have used that word before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in your science fairs and all that, a hypothesis. Your hypothesis is the part P following if. So whatever is directly after the word if is your hypothesis. The conclusion is the part Q following then. So your example they gave you is if it is raining, then there are clouds in the sky. Your hypothesis would be it is raining. Your conclusion is there are clouds in the sky. You don't really have to do this anymore, but we're gonna still do it within our notes. They took out Venn diagrams of our pacing guide, but if you see that, that's what it means. If is reliant, then is reliant on the if. All right, this next part, negation. Negation means it is the opposite of the statement. Sometimes negation gets confusing because we tend to think that it means the word not, because our example would be like squiggly line P, but it really just means the opposite.
Whoa.
All right. So statement one, the ball is red. Let's say this is P. So my negation is the ball is not red. So that would be squiggly line. No, it's still P. We're still talking about the red ball. The only thing that's different was that word not, so it made it opposite. All right, statement two is where they kind of confuse you. My first statement says the cat is not black. Let's call that in. I'm just making up letters. Okay, let's say that it says the cat is not black, but then when they negated it, the cat was black. Do you see how in this part the word not isn't there? It's just the opposite. I personally will not confuse you like that on the test, like statement two, but you just know that to negate something means to take the opposite. It says important. Notice that statement two is already negative, so its negation was positive. I know this is a lot to take in at one time. A lot of words. Any questions here? Equivalent statements. The conditional statement and its contrapositive are both true or false. Contrapositive is one of those statements. Similarly, the converse and inverse of a conditional statement are either both true or both false. You can write definitions as conditional statements. We'll talk about this more later in the unit. We're asking ourselves, is this true? Is this false? Blah, blah, blah. All right, let's do this before lunch. All right, so perpendicular lines. That's our symbol, an upside down capital T. And our definition that I want you to write is if two lines intersect to form a right angle, and these lines are perpendicular. This part of our vocab is also known as symbols. Perpendicular is a long word, so you'll normally see it as a symbol. Then it says, write the definition of perpendicular lines as a bio-conditional statement. All right, Chris, what is my phrase after the word if?
Two lines intersect.
Two.
Line.
So 2 lines intersect to form a right angle. And because they said to use a biconditional statement, I know I need that phrase. What does that IFF mean again?
If and only if.
Good, if and only if. So, 2 lines intersect to form a right angle. If and only if. Those are ands. I'll consider one. If and only if the lines are perpendicular. So that means I took the hypothesis, I took the conclusion, I combined the two with the phrase if and only if. All right, when you get back from lunch, we're going to finish this back page. Be on time for lunch. All right, so we're going to finish these notes for at least part 1. Next, we have a compound statement. A compound statement combines 2 or more statements. So, how to form it? This is a conjecture. Conjunction. What that means is you connect 2 or more statements with the word and. Okay? You combine 2 or more statements with the word and, it's called a conjunction. So your example is, you will eat a sandwich and you will drink juice. If you were to label this, let's say that we call, you will eat a sandwich, we'll call that S. You will drink juice, we'll call that J. What you need to know is that your symbol looks like a capital A without the line through it. On your test, I'm going to give you like different letters or different statements, and I'm going to say use S and J in a sentence. Okay, here we're kind of doing it backwards. But your symbol would be S and J. What's important about this are the symbols, not really the statements right now. The symbols are important. The second one is a disjunction, which means we're using the word or to connect 2 or more statements. So once again, my first statement is you will eat a sandwich, we're calling that S. So if this is S, or you will drink juice, my symbol looks like a B. Basically, it's the complete opposite of the and. So my symbols for this whole sentence would be S or J. We'll do a lot more work with that with the rest of the lesson. And then it says a compound statement is true only when both S and J are true, and it's false when both S and J are false. They both stand together. Okay, so let's do example 1. You guys get this down? Example 1 says, identify the hypotheses and conclusion of each statement. All right, you guys can underline this. I want you to copy what I'm doing. Underline the first part, underline the second part. You may have to put 2 lines under, like if you're doing it, I would do it like this, so you can tell the difference. All right, so the first part says, if an animal is a robin, is that my hypothesis or that my conclusion?
Hypothesis.
P or Q?
P.
Good. And then the animal is a bird.
Q.
That's going to be Q. Okay, write that on your paper. That's how we're going to identify these statements. So my hypothesis is whatever is after the word and. An animal is a robin. And my conclusion is after the word then. The animal is a bird. Does that make sense? How we just found out what the hypothesis and the conclusion are? Okay. Look at letter B. It says vertical angles are congruent. There's no if, there's no then, but we still have a hypothesis, we still have a conclusion. What is my hypothesis? What are we talking about here? The vertical angle. So we're going to highlight that, and we're going to put P. That's my hypothesis. So Chris, what's my conclusion? What about the vertical angles?
Congruent.
They are congruent. Good. So we can still do this even when we don't have if and then. And then we can just fill it in. My hypothesis will be vertical angles. And my conclusion will be are congruent. Any questions with example 1? Example 2, your directions say rewrite the following conditional statements into if-then form. All right, let's take a look at this first. All whales are mammals. Sam, what are we talking about when in this sentence?
All whales.
All whales, so that's going to be my hypothesis. And what's my conclusion? That they are mammals. So they want us to make this into an if-then statement. So I'm going to say, if it is a whale, then it's a mammal. Good. If it's a whale, whatever they say to make it into if-then form, you need those 2 words, if and then. Letter B is a little tricky. It says 3 points are collinear if there is a line containing them. What's the phrase after the word if? There is a line containing them, so does that be my hypothesis or the conclusion? Good. This is my hypothesis. Diana, you got that? Okay. My if is in the middle of the sentence, so whatever is after that, that's my hypothesis. So in this case, it's at the back of the sentence. And so my points that are collinear will be my conclusion. So we're going to rewrite this. When we rewrite it, we can write it in, some words may be different. So if there's a line containing them, then the 3 points are collinear. If you wanted to write it just like that, I would not mark that wrong. I may change it a little bit and say, if there is a line containing 3 points, then the points are collinear. I just like for it to kind of make sense. All right, the last little bit of notes. All panthers are cats. Brian, what's my hypothesis? All panthers. What's my conclusion? Cats. So we can say, if it is a panther, then it is a cat. If it is a panther, then it is a cat. All right, letter B, the diagonals of a square are congruent. Okay, so the diagonals of my square, my P, and then R congruent will be my conclusion. So let's see here. We could say if there are diagonals in, well, there's going to be, but if there are diagonals in the square, then they are congruent. You could also say if a square, if it is a square, then the diagonals are congruent. You can kind of mix that up if you want. It all depends on how you want to write it. But I'm going to say if a square has diagonals, then they are congruent. We're not doing letter C. All right, so this is the end of part 1, okay? Part 2, we're going to rely on that blue sheet that I gave you, and we're going to finish these examples, okay? Most of this was like definitions. Your examples are going to be super important because you'll be able to actually write in your conditional statements. Your homework is homework day 1. It's at the back because I forgot to switch it. You can probably start some of it, but you do not have actual homework today. So I'm not checking this homework on Friday. I'm checking it once we're done with day 1. So if you want to start it, you can. If you don't, that's fine too. But you guys have about 10 minutes. I want you to start your homework or do your add-ons.